Choke, choke, chokery, choke, choke, chokera, choke, choke, chokery, chokery. What if I told you that one of the greatest late season chokes of all time happened in the 1960s, before the LCS era? Heck, even before the wild card era. Well, that's what this video is all about. I make no bones about it. This is the one of the worst late season collapses of all time. I could easily have done the 2007 and 2008 New York Mets because they both were sucking terribly and they choked their division leads. Didn't make the playoffs. And of course, what about the 1987 Toronto Blue Jays? Last week of the season, all they had to do was win a few games and they would have been safe. Heck, they just needed to win one game in Detroit on the final weekend to force a one-game playoff back in Toronto. But no, they didn't. Heck, I could even do the 2012 Texas Rangers because they had a five-game lead with 7 to play and they choked that around. But I found a much better Texas team to deal with in my what ifs. Obviously, I haven't done Texas yet. But we'll talk about the 64 Phillies in a while. But first, history on the Phils. The 1964 Phillies came from a city that basically had no luck winning World Series or even getting to finals. Before 1964, the Phillies had been to two finals, 1915 and 1950, whereas their crosstown rivals, the Philadelphia Athletics, won a few titles in the early 1910s and all that crap. The Phillies were the last of the big six, the original 16, the 16 teams that started the 1901 World baseball season, as, of course, the first season of the modern MLB. And the last team, 1980, they finally won the World Series. 95 years in existence. Of course, this is pre-MLB when they talk about it. A lot of people will say, hang on a tick. What about the St. Louis Browns / Baltimore Orioles? Yeah, the St. Louis Browns, but they were the Baltimore Orioles and they won in the 1960s. I can remember 1966 easily. Them winning the World Series. You got the Bo Sox who won 5 in a row. You got the Yankees. You got the Tigers winning in 1909. No, Tigers winning in the 1930s for sure. The Chicago White Sox winning in 1917. You got the Philadelphia A's, as I mentioned. You got yourself the New York. Well, the Yankees were the Baltimore Orioles before the New York Yankees. Truth. There were a few other teams. Cleveland won a title back in 1948 for sure. And I don't know who the other team was. But rest assured that happened. In the National League, you had the Cubs, who won a World Series in 1906. Remember? The Cardinals, who won many times in the 1940s. You got the Dodgers, who won in 1955, way before the Phillies did. You got the Pittsburgh Pirates, memorably 1960, Bill Mazeroski. You got the Giants in 1954, with Willie Mays in them. And you got another team. I can't remember. But anyway, Philly didn't win a World Series until 1980. The team was jinxed. A lot of years in last place in either the NL or the NL East as a division team or in the wildcard era. Philly didn't really have much bright optimism. 1915 and 1950 were World Series appearances, but they both were taken to the woodshed by the Bo Sox and the Yankees, respectively. The Phillies would come back into decency in the 1970s, chasing for a spot in the World Series. But in 76, 77, 78, they all lost in LCSs, once to the Reds and twice to the Dodgers. So the Phillies, try as they might, couldn't get through. 1980 was their breakthrough year, and of course, if I was alive, well, of course, that was 5 years before I was born, I would really be cringing. As a closeted Montreal Expos fan, well, and of course a Blue Jay fan too, but Philly needed to beat the Expos on the second last day of the year, a Saturday night game, when Mike Schmidt in the 10th inning, or was it the 11th inning, hit that 2-run home run to get them to the division, and poor Montreal suffering through all those division heartbreaks. Phillies would face Houston in one of the best LCSs of all time and win in 5 games. Close. Only counts in harshness and hand grenades, but baseball did count. The Phillies then went on to take the Kansas City Royals, who finally were making their first World Series appearance after finally beating the Yankees in the playoff series. Bad news for the Royals. I think it was Frank White who had a shit-tacular World Series 2 for 28 or something like that. I know George Brett had hemorrhoids, but the Phillies finally won the World Series using Ted McGraw, who led the '69 Mets to a title as the closer for the fireman. So anyway, the Phils, surprisingly, 3 years later, would actually get back to the World Series. They were called the Wheeze Kids because they had a lot of veterans. They had Steve Carlton, Pete Rose, Larry Bowa, Bob Boone. Yeah, they had a lot of people 30 plus years. Tony Perez, I don't think so, but Joe Morgan was on that team, and they wheezed their way to the NL pennant, and shockingly were put in their place. Despite all their veteran presence, the Baltimore Orioles with Cal Ripken Jr. got the title. So the Phillies were offbeat. '93 was a year of grit and guts. Somehow getting from last place in the NL East to the division title easily. Montreal was runner-up, by the way. But the Phillies had a decent team. They had Lenny Dykstra, Pete Incaviglia, Jim Eisenreich, Kevin Stalker, um, John Kruk, Darren Dalton, Mitch Williams, Kurt Schilling, Danny Jackson. They had a rough and tough team. And that '93 Phillies team actually beat the Braves in the World to go to the World Series. That's not easy to do. The Braves of all teams with their pitching rich system. The '93 Phillies would go on to get taken out in 6 games by Joe Carter's series-winning home run and my beloved Toronto Blue Jays. Thank you very much. Philly would have a few playoff chances, but in 2008, they came through with a young core like Ryan Howard, Jimmy Rollins, and heck, Brad Lidge actually was a fireman. He didn't blow a save all season, even in the playoffs. But of course, they took out the upstart Tampa Bay Rays in 5 games, easily winning the series. So anyway, the Phillies might haven't really recaptured their glory days in 2008. They have Bryce Harper now, but we'll see what happens. So we're talking about the 1964 Philadelphia Phillies. I know probably want to do the '93 Phillies, but I'm like, I can't do that, mostly because they've been in the final. And that's the rule, people. I don't want to put a disclaimer up. Anyhow, we'll talk about the 1964 Philadelphia Phillies. They had some good pitching. They had Jim Bunning, who threw a perfect game on Father's Day. They had Chris Short, Dennis Bennett, and some decent pitching. And some good hitting from Dick Allen and a few other people. But the 1964 Phillies fell under the golden rule. Thou shalt not print 5 World Series tickets before 5 final. I know it's blasphemous, but what do you? Philly basically in September decided to print World Series tickets a few weeks before the season ended. Sadly for the Phillies, they choked heavily. They were in first place for a while, and then they dropped all the way to 3rd place at the finish line. One main reason was that Gene Mauch had done the dumbest thing possible and put a 2 or 3 pitcher rotation. A 4-man rotation would have been fine, but 2 or 3 people. He basically tired out his pitching staff because he wanted to go for the kill. He wanted to go for the division right now and then rest them when he got the National League. But unfortunately, it didn't work, and he was left with egg on his face. I feel bad for Gene Mauch because remember, this is a guy who also managed the expansion Expos for 4 years and the 1986 Angels that should have been to the World Series if it wasn't for Donnie Moore's faithful pitch. But technically, I blame Gary Lucas because Gary Lucas's hit by pitch of Rich Gedman put the runners on base needed for Henderson to take the lead. But regardless, yeah, poor Drew Mauch never got to a World Series with that fun. He overmanaged. He was the 60s version of Dusty Baker, if I do say so myself. So practically, the what if is easy. The '64 Phillies don't choke. They don't lose all 10 of their games. They win at least 2 or 3 of them to win the division, to win that league against the Cardinals and the Reds. And they'll face the 1964 New York Yankees. Now, of course, you know the rules. that the Yankees will be using their rotation throughout the World Series, the pitching rotation and hitters if I need to. And I leave the 64 Phillies to think about a rotation. So let's see if the Phillies can get a title. Here we are, the 64 Yanks and the 64 Phillies playing in the World Series. If memory serves me right, the Cardinals ended up having the 1964 games 1, 2, 6, and 7 at their park. So that's why we're doing the in Philly. Whitey Ford legitimately started game 1 for the Yankees in the World Series. Chris Short will start for the Phillies after getting some much needed rest. And the rest period helps out. No, it doesn't. It doesn't really help out him. Yankees win 4-3 at Connie Mack Stadium, otherwise known as Shibe Park. So the Phillies did well. They actually shut out the Yankees for 5 innings before Joe Pepitone hit an RBI single to score Tom Tresh and Phil Linz. Nicely done, 2-0. But then Frank Thomas, not that Frank Thomas of the White Sox. There was a slugger run in with Frank Thomas. He hits a 2-run home run to make it 2-2. And then Tony Gonzalez, not that Tony Gonzalez, flew one for a double to score Johnny Callison, make it 3-2. In the 7th inning, Dick Allen makes a terrible move on a ground ball, and Phil Linz gets on base to score Bobby Richardson. Mantle gets a sac fly that scores Hector Lopez. 4-3, and Phillies had a runner on third base in the 8th inning, but Tony Gonzalez grounded out. So if we look at the box score, Phil Linz is in because of an injury to Phil Rizzuto. So anyway, Pepitone 2 RBIs, Mantle with 1. Whitey Ford went 6 innings, and then Hal Reniff and Pete Mickelson. Comes with Pete Mickelson was the closer? Didn't I know that? Anyway, the Phillies, you see there, Thomas 2 RBIs, Tony Gonzalez 1. Chris Short 7 innings. Ed Roebuck came in. Now I can't remember who started game 2 for the Yankees in 1964. I think it was Budin for game 3 and Downey for game 4. So Jim Bunny is rested enough to for game 2, obviously in Philly. And unfortunately, despite a fast start, the Phils lose games 1 and 2. Roger Maris hits a 2-run home run. This was, I believe, his last year before leaving the Yankees for the Cardinals. I don't remember. Tony Taylor and Johnny Callison each hit home runs to left center field at Shibe, 3-2. And then Dick Allen with a 2 RBI double to make it 5-2 before Frank Thomas hits another home run, 7-2. It's like, yikes. What are the Yankees thinking? What are you thinking? 7-2 on to the 7th inning when Roger Maris grounded out, Tresh scored. Basically, the Phillies were like, let's let them score at 7-3. And they're up 7-3 in the 9th. We have a Gonzalez pinch hitting for Stoudemire. He gets a single. Tom Tresh makes it runners on 1st and 3rd. And then the Phillies make a pitching change. Phil Linz walks, bases loaded. Mickey Mantle strikes out. Wow, amazing. 1 out. But Tony Taylor makes a move on a ground ball that he missed on. Maris is on base. Gonzalez scores. 7-4. Elston Hallard makes it 7-5 with an RBI single. And then Joe Pepitone makes it 7-6. Okay. But then Clint Boyer, with a RBI single, 7-7. Yikes. What the fuck, Philly? Thankfully, they get a fielder's choice, 1st and 2nd. But unfortunately, Dick Allen does it again. Another bad play on it. Ball, and Gonzalez reaches with Pepitone in. And Gonzalez is the guy who came in for pinch hitter for Stoudemire. Nothing happened. That is actually Pedro Gonzalez, by the way, who came in. 3 erased by Maris, 1 by Howard, 1 by Pepitone, 1 by Boyer. Ralph Terry goes 3 innings and does terribly, but the bullpen picks him up, only giving up 2 hits after that. Stan Williams, Mel Stoudemire, Hal Reniff. Good job there, Phillies. I thought they had it. Jim Bunning pitched 8 innings and then left it to the bullpen and Jack Alshon, you fucked it up. Ed Roebuck does his job 2/3 of an inning, but to not give up a run, but unfortunately it's not enough. So now they're going to go with Dennis Bennett. The Yankees go with Jim Bouton for Game 3 at Old Yankee Stadium. And it worked. 9-7 Yankees. Tom Trash hits a home run to left to make it 1-0. Mantle RBI single to score Linz. After a few plays, Clint Boyer with an RBI single to make it 3-0. Bobby Richardson gets a 2 RBI double. And Jim Bouton even joins in the fun. He's the pitcher. He has an RBI double to score Bobby Richardson 6-zip. Philly does come back somewhat in the third. Dick Allen hits a 2 RBI triple, whereas Frank Thomas flew out deep to score Allen 6-3. Okay, maybe the Phillies might come back through. Phil Linz hits in a double play. Bouton scores 7-3. Mr. Score, Tom Tresh, RBI single. Frank Thomas comes back with another home run to right field. 8-5 Yankees. Now you got a problem. But Joe Pepitone gets a base hit to score Roger Maris, make it 9-5. And the Phillies actually fight. Dick Allen get an RBI single, score Covington. Frank Thomas, another RBI. Score Allen, runner on second, but Johnny Callison popped it up. So the Phillies, as you see there, Frank Thomas with a home run, 4 RBIs. Dick Allen with 3 RBIs. Dennis Bennett, 2/3 of an inning, just sucked till the yacht. Bobby Shantz, remember him? The 5'8" pitcher who won the 1952 MVP for the Phillies. He came in. And then they decided not to. I think they had to pinch hit for him. They went with Jim Bunning the rest of the way. Why the hell would you go with Jim Bunning for 6 innings? Why? RBIs from 6 Yankees. Bouton went 8 2/3. Hal Reniff had to come in for the save, and he did. That was a pathetic move. Now you're down 3-0. You don't want to use Bunning. You might as well use Chris Short because the Yankees decide to use Al Downing. Besides, worst comes to worst, they got to play Game 5. And this game was a classic. Philly had a runner on third in the first inning, but Johnny Callison flew out. They had first and third with 1 out, but had a couple of mistakes. In the second inning, nothing coming across the plate for either team. Through 7 innings, 8 combined hits. Frank Thomas hits a home run to center field and gone 1-0 Phillies. Now can they do something about it? Well, they do. They just give up a putrid little single to score nobody. The Phillies had a runner on second in the 9th. Wes Covington gets a fly out. Okay, then you got the bottom of the 9th. Phil Linz flies out. Mantle RBI, a single. Roger Maris pops up. And then all you got to do is get rid of Howard, and you got yourself a Game 5. Base hit. Then Joe Pepitone comes in, past the mound. Mantle scores. Halston Howard is safe at third base, but Clint Boyer lines out. Okay, Phillies nothing in their 10th. Runner, Yankees had a runner on first, but nothing there. Phillies first and second turned into first to third, and then Tony Taylor unfortunately flies out to end the top of the 11th. Yankees put a runner on first base, nothing doing. Phillies nothing doing. Yankees at the 13th inning. Runners on first and third. Ruben Amaro Sr. comes up, swing and a miss. Cookie Rojas comes in, ground ball to short. No. Yankees. Rick Wise is there. Tom Trash flies out. Phil Linz flies out. And then Mantle takes a 2-1 pitch and drives it to right center field. Yeah, he had a famous home run in Game 4 of the real World Series 64. But this one wins the World Series, and the Yankees don't bat an eye, and they sweep the 1964 Phillies. So I guess it was actually good that the 64 Phillies didn't get to the World Series. They would have been swelled whole. Frank Thomas with the big RBI. Chris Short, 8 2/3. Good pitching. Then Roebuck, Dallas Green. Dallas Green was a pitcher. John Boozer and Rick Wise. The 64 Yankees, great job there. Mantle and Pepitone. Al Downing went 8 innings. Remember, that's the guy who gave up Hank Aaron's 715 home run. Hal Reniff, Pete Mickelson, Bill Stafford, Steve Hamilton, and Stan Williams. And all of a sudden, things look bad. But I guess it was supposed to disguise that the 64 Phillies did not do anything at